What if 99% of real estate agents are the wrong agent for you? Today, our expert guest is exposing why that is and what to look for instead in order to avoid a six-figure mistake. What if your 401k came with a fire pit and a lake view? That's the question that inspired it all. I'm Katie Klein, and living in New York City meant buying a home felt impossible. So I decided to flip the script and buy my second home first. When I'm not there, it doubles as a short-term rental, covering its costs, building equity, and even turning a profit. And best of all, it gives me a place to vacation for free. What 401k can do that? Every week, join me as we hear from real people who've done the same and experts who can help you do it too. If you thought owning any home, let alone a second one, was out of reach, this is the show for you. This is Second Home First. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Second Home First. I'm your host, Katie Klein, and today we have a really exciting expert episode for you all. For many of us, our first real estate transaction won't be our primary residence, but our second home. So, how does that change how we work with real estate agents? My guest today is Jonathan Greene, a real estate agent, investor, and the host of the podcast Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. He's here to pull back the curtain and give us the good, the bad, and the ugly on the world of real estate agents. Jonathan breaks down how old school mindsets like renting is just throwing money away or the need to find a forever home are not only outdated, but actually harmful. He also shares insider guidance on how to evaluate prospective agents for your home search, what really matters in an agent client relationship, and why he believes, yes, 99% of real estate agents are the wrong agent for you. So, without further ado, let's hear from Jonathan. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I'm excited to be back on this new podcast. We've talked so many times, but thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to get your invaluable perspective on this. And really, as a real estate agent, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions people have when it comes to buying a second home versus buying a primary home?
I think people think you have to be super rich to get the second home. I mean, it's like, and as if it's a luxury, not even thinking that your second home can make money. Your first home can make money, and it's really about how you define home. So I think, like, if you just look at 1950s nuclear family old movies, it's all white picket fence house, family, but everything's changing. People are having less kids or they're having kids later. They're working from home, doing more different things. They're traveling more. So the idea of that permanent home, I don't think as secure as it was. And I think that's a good thing. And that can lead you into other opportunities that are maybe smarter or a better fit for your life or a better use of your money.
I know when you and I first met, you discussed a trend that you called choice renting, which is totally aligned with this second home first approach. Can you explain what it is, who's doing it, and why you think it's becoming so popular?
Yeah, I mean, housing's too expensive for most people. So you have to kind of make a choice. Do I want to make a mortgage payment or do I want to pay rent? And a lot of people think that paying rent is just flushing your money down the toilet. And look, there's been plenty of years where I said that because I was always a cash buyer. So I had the luxury to be able to say that. But then there came a time where I became a choice renter because my kids were, one had graduated high school and the other had one more year. And I didn't know where they were going to go after. And the market was hot and I didn't need to stay in the town. So I sold my house, got paid, and we moved into a rental for 2 years. This is somebody like this is after I've owned homes for 25 or 30 years. And I almost in my head, like almost felt embarrassed, which is crazy. So, but I became a choice renter, and I think it always kind of stayed in my mind. And now that I see that housing is, generally unaffordable, I think people are making a lot better decisions to rent. But then when you have making good income, you have to figure out what to do with your money. I like index funds. I think that's a good option, and you can be a choice renter and you can just pump it into index funds. Like I'm doing great this year on those. But I think there's other real estate opportunities, which again dovetails with when we first had the conversation. So when I saw the name of this podcast, I was like, oh, we've talked about this on both of our podcasts. And yeah, I think when I think of choice renters, I think there's a lot of things that they can do. One being buying that second home first, the other being investing in real estate assets that are maybe alternative, or that they're passive investors first, which again is something that most people think of them doing later.
Absolutely. I wanna go back to 2 things you just said there. 1, rent is flushing money down the toilet, something we hear time and time again. And 2, that when you started renting after years of being a real estate investor yourself and owning homes and living in homes that you owned, you felt embarrassed. And I think this is really important to talk about because there's almost something psychologically that we're not a real adult or we're not at least a successful adult if we don't own the home we live in.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird because I knew what assets I had. You know, I've been on time freedom for 20 years, and then I'm renting, and somehow I feel bad about it. And meanwhile, the layout of the house was perfect for my kids. They were both, teenage, like I think they were 17 and 19 at the time, and there were 3 levels, and each had a bedroom and a bathroom. So we all had our own full level. And then the pandemic hit during this time, so that layout literally was perfect because we couldn't go anywhere for so long. So I think, I mean, I cycled out of it, but I do think it's important for people to know and think like your first option doesn't have to be to buy a home. And then even past that, what I'm always counseling people as an agent is stop thinking everything's a forever home. Nothing's a forever home because real estate's tradable. When the market's up, you trade it and you get a different home and then you fix it up, or you just buy something better, or you buy something smaller and downsize. These kind of, I guess, fairy tale ideas, I think, are really harmful to your investing trajectory and your investing education when you pin it down. As somebody who, just say, like before people get married, they're a couple, 2 people, and they're starting to project all of these things, but then one gets a job change and it throws. You have to be more nimble now. And second home first, and the things that we're talking about of other things, that just keeps you nimble.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Finding the right cleaning team has been absolutely crucial to the success of my second homes. They're my eyes and ears on the property when I'm not there, spotting issues early, keeping standards high, and helping me wow guests time and again. But finding someone local you actually trust? That wasn't always easy until I found Turno. Turno connects you with vetted cleaners who understand the demands of short term rentals in your specific market. Their app makes everything simple, from auto scheduling your cleans to photo and video checklists that ensure your property looks exactly the way you want, and even automatic payments after each clean is completed. Click the link in the show notes to check out Turno and get $25 off your first cleaning. You finally bought your dream vacation home. Now what? Your goal is for it to pay for itself, but between managing bookings, guest messages, and cleaners, it can feel like a full time job. That's where Lodify comes in. Lodify is a comprehensive vacation rental platform that makes it easy to manage and market your second home, even if you're just getting started. From syncing your calendar across Airbnb, Verbo, and Booking.com to automating payments and guest communication, Lodify simplifies it all. It's built for beginners and comes with free one on one onboarding to help you get up and running fast. To make your second home start working for you, visit the link in the show notes and use code SHF20, that's S as in second, H as in home, F as in first, 20, to receive an additional 20% off their yearly and bi yearly plans. And now back to the show. The concept of a forever home gives me, like, actual hives, and that's, like, largely because I'm a commitment phobe, but I also think what you're talking about here is when it's our primary home, there's also these parameters that we're like, "It has to have everything, it needs to be absolutely perfect," and if the bank tells you you're approved for $1,000,000, meanwhile, you really shouldn't be buying $1,000,000 based on your financial situation, you're gonna flex up to that $1,000,000 because it's your primary home, it's where you live every day, and you've put it in your head that it has to be absolutely perfect, and that's why I really like this strategy. Because, like you said, you were able to rent a place that was perfect for your needs at that time. In the future, your kids might move out, and you may not need those 2 other floors, so is that the place you really needed to buy long term? Maybe, maybe not, So you get that flexibility with renting, and then you're able to be a bit more permissive of yourself to not get, like, the perfect place when it's your second home because you're like, "It's not my full-time residence, so if there's quirks about it, that's okay."
Well, I mean, you and I both like quirks, so I mean, it really depends what you like, but I really think the definition of home is where people go wrong. If I'm in a rental, like, that felt like home, and I think once I realized I brought my furniture, my kids' rooms were great, even when they were younger and we would move, it always felt like home because we're there, we're a family. Even if you're a single person, it feels like home. You come home, you have your creature comforts, that's what it is. Your nice blanket on the couch can feel more like home than some house that you bought that you bid to get because you thought you had to have it and you don't really even like it. People, I remember people like, they're like, "Oh, I'm thinking about making an offer." I'm like, "You are really so on the showing." They're like, "I know, but the market's tight." I'm like, "I'm not writing an offer for you in a house where you're like, you could take it or leave it. You're not going to be happy there."
It's a huge investment, it's not a pair of jeans.
Yeah, exactly. And that I just think people's idea of home is messed up and probably just a bit antiquated. If I'm where I want and I have my stuff that I like and I can still do my routines, it feels like home to me. I like second homes because in my mind I'm thinking short-term rentals because that's how I grew up, you know that. And it's so for me when I go and stay at a short-term rental, which is part of I'm sure what we'll talk about, it feels like home for the week for me because that's why I never stayed in hotels. I always stayed in timeshares and short-term rentals because I had laundry and a kitchen, so I don't have to go out for every meal. I could stay healthier, and I had a place where I could work out or do yoga. I mean, and these are the trends that I'm seeing. So who says you have to be in your quote first home 24/7, 365? Maybe it's a weekend home that you rent out other times. Maybe it's a short-term rental that you use 7 times a year when no one's there and it pays for itself and you're not making a ton of money, but you're not losing a ton of money.
Right, and you get 7 free vacations a year. That sounds
Exactly.
pretty great to me.
Yeah, and you can figure out how to make more money on it. I mean, when you live again, going back to the issue of homes don't make money, they appreciate. So it's technically earning value, but you don't get no one's paying you the money unless you take a HELOC. So when you have a second home first, you're making income, you're running a business, and you're learning more things about houses because there's a lot of people going through. So things break, and then you're going to learn things about your own house. Yeah, I just think people's timing, they just need to start to readjust what you have to do. And sometimes that's making sure like if you're in a partnership that you and your partner are kind of on the same page about what it means because a lot of people do have the dream, of a big wedding. I mean, I can just take this as a pretty good example. Two of my friends in law school, both of their parents offered them, we'll either buy you a house or we'll pay for the wedding. And they both chose the wedding and they both kicked themselves. 'Cause, like, just get the house. It's an asset. And I think if you look at home as an asset, you can move it around. If it's the one you buy, now you have a great asset that you could trade for more later. If you're in America, it's gonna go up unless you drastically overpay. You can take a part of a HELOC, which again, what you made a great point when you say if you're approved for 1,000,000, that doesn't mean you spend 999. Same thing, if you have 200K in a HELOC, you should always only take half of that. Never take more than half your HELOC, or you're just going to be in double trouble, and you're putting your first home in jeopardy because of your second home, which is silly.
Right. As a realtor, are you seeing more people buy their second home first, or do you think this is still quite a new strategy?
Yeah, I think it's still new. I just think that people are having a hard time wrapping their head around why would I get an investment property first, meanwhile they've been investing in stocks for 10 years. It's like it's just a mindset shift, And I knew when I saw the title, and then if I think, a title of my podcast about the mindful approach to real estate investing, like we've always been aligned, you and I, when we talk, and it just seems like this is part of the way to help them realize, hey, you can tell your story, you did it. You didn't know that that was like your full plan at the time, but now looking back, you're like, this is a framework for others to learn from. And it's if you're getting income from it, really, how risky is it as long as you know what you're getting yourself into?
I had no idea I was a real estate investor until
Oh, yeah.
really once we set up my second property and that started working, I was like, I guess I'm kind of a real estate investor now. But it's like you said, with all these stories that we've been told or we tell ourselves, We have this almost imposter syndrome of I couldn't possibly, or there's one right way to do things.
That's what other people do, you know?
Exactly.
One thing that's important when we think of that, like, hey, that's what the other people do. It's why everyone should go to real estate investing meetups. Because when you go to meetups, you see someone who's just like you, and you're like, who's that? Like, are they the waiter, waitress? I don't know. And they're like, no, I'm here. I have 7 short-term rentals. You're like, what? They're like, yeah, I bought them all first, and I live in a rental here because I commute a lot. Now you see somebody just like you in real life, not online or being pitched a course for something, who's doing what you want to do. And now all of a sudden, even though like your friends and family could have told you, like, hey, this is a good idea, or you heard it on a podcast, when someone who's just like you does it, you're like, huh, it's inherently more doable. Like, I didn't know people were doing that. Now it's not them, it's, oh, this person, Bob, who I met at a meetup. It's not, it's becomes attainable all of a sudden.
And sometimes you're like, "Bob doesn't seem that smart. If Bob can do it, I can do it for sure."
Well, I mean, that's real estate investing. I and to your point about being a real estate investor, I probably own 50 properties in my name. I never at the time, like, this is still when I'm like in my 20, 30 maybe, because my dad had owned a lot and we shared a lot in partnership. I never once thought of myself as a real estate investor. I went to college, I was a college student. Then I went to law school, I was a law school student. Then I was a lawyer. I just
Right?
like to make money.
It was something you did on the side.
Well, I did a lot of stuff on the side. I invested in stocks, I tried businesses. This is just the way of trying to figure out how to build a generational legacy. And there's nothing in it that says a second home first can't be part of that framework.
When most people think about first-time home buyers, they imagine someone buying their primary residence. What advice would you give someone who's buying their second home as their first ever real estate transaction?
I'm doing it right now in upstate New York. My kind of secondary market where I go every weekend specifically to help people find weekend homes and short term rentals. And yeah, these people are city dwellers. And of course, like in New York City, they're probably in their 30s. They've just been renting because it's just they don't know where they're going to be, and so they're making a big investment on a second home first, and they're going to run it as a short term rental, but they're going to use it a lot. So I've kind of been able to watch the mindset, and to be honest, it's not that much different from a freak out than for people buying their own first home. It's the same level of freak out, but you're gonna get paid so much more. You're gonna be able to immediately operationalize in a lot of cases if you're buying something that's closer to turnkey, which I would suggest no matter what first home you're buying, if you don't have experience, just buy something that's ready to go. But if you're doing it and you want to earn income, even if it's short term or midterm rental, great. The closer it is to operationalization, the better. So I think by them seeing that, I get less worried with the second home because I know they can make money. Again, they have to follow the things for what type of income they want, midterm rental, short-term rental, long-term rental, whatever it is. And nothing to be said, like there's nothing wrong with a solid long-term rental as a second home first. It's very safe, it's easy, and there's lots of turnkey rentals that you can get for way less than you think that will produce and give you an asset that will slowly develop and help you learn a little bit along the way.
Everything that you just said, I think, is such a great example of why finding the right agent is crucial for every transaction. And, what I'm hearing is you as an investor, as someone who has owned short term rentals, who rent short term rentals, you're able to coach your clients on things that they might not know or think about or know to look into. So what are some things that you would suggest listeners or viewers look for, ask for when they're looking at a real estate agent to potentially work with to know if they're the right partner, especially for someone who's buying a second home that they want to use as a short term rental?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really important. If you want to invest, 99% of the realtors aren't for you. People may say that's not true. It's true. It's actually probably a higher percentage. And just in general, the majority of realtors are chasing commission. Not all of them. The good ones, I could care less about the commission. I really like that's an honest truth because I feel like if I do my job as a good human, commissions come, and I've that's proven it that it works. So I don't worry about it. But I understand if someone needs to pay their rent and this is their only business, they're going to focus on the commission. But once a realtor does that, they're not for you because the second that means they're giving you bad advice and their top priority is the commission and not your happiness. And that's why, like I was saying, I won't let people write offers on homes that I don't think they're going to like. I'll just pass on the commission. I just fired a client the other day because they were new investors and they wanted to look at as is properties. And I'm like, I'm not, it's just not a good use of my time for you to do that because I'm not going to write an as is offer for you. I just won't do it.
Well, explain to the listeners and viewers why.
Well, so there's a lot of schools of thought, but if a seller lists a property as is and that's how it's being marketed, it's not for first time home buyers because they're not going to give you any option to negotiate. People say, oh, well, maybe you get in there and you can. Yeah, but like we're trying to be time efficient here with our search. So if somebody's telling you outright, there's nothing you can do to get a credit from me, it's not a good look to be restricted like that. You want to they say, "Oh, well, we'll still do an inspection." Yeah, but you're not getting out of it. And that's arguable. Obviously, I'm a lawyer, there's a legal point of view, but as an agent, I'm not going into a transaction with someone who is going to try to get out of the transaction and then that's going to make me look dumb. So for all first-time buyers, like we developed a hold harmless agreement. That's really for the agents that work for my brokerage. It's not for me. I just say I'm not going to do it. And I've never seen, well, I've seen it because I always do this, but the looks that people give me when I'm willing to, and I said to him, listen, and this should be, for your listeners, I'm telling them, and I said this verbatim, if I'm willing to give up $20,000 to save you from a disaster, I think it's time for you to look in the mirror, not me. Like, I don't want your commission on that.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Interior design is one of my favorite parts of buying a second home. I love creating a beautiful space. But let's be honest, staying on budget, managing orders, tracking deliveries, and juggling countless retailers can get overwhelming fast, which is why so many hosts turn to Minoan. With Minoan, you can shop more than 180 brands you love all in one place. That's brands like Crate and Barrel, Samsung, Anthropologie, Article, Casper, and so many more. They give you access to better than trade pricing, something typically reserved for professional designers, allowing you to save on every purchase. They keep every order, delivery, and receipt organized in one clean dashboard. And the best part, there's no membership fee, no subscription, no catch, just a streamlined approach with big savings. Once your second home is set up, Minoan can even make it shoppable. Your place basically becomes a four-walled influencer. So after guests spend a weekend obsessing over your couch or those sheets or that coffee maker, they can scan your QR code and order the exact same item for their own home. You earn a commission, no extra work required. To furnish smarter, visit minoan.com/second home to sign up and receive a free $25 in credit. When I was finally ready to rent out my vacation home, I had no idea what to charge guests. Thankfully, that's when I found Price Labs, a dynamic pricing tool that helps me automate pricing like a pro. It's simple. Price Labs uses real time data to automatically adjust my rates based on local demand, nearby events, and booking trends. It's easy to use, lets me set my own minimum and maximum prices, and keeps my pricing smart and competitive without any manual work. If you want your vacation home to pay for itself or even turn a profit, you need Price Labs to help you get the most from every booking. Visit the link in the show notes and enter code Second Home First, all one word, for a 30-day free trial plus $10 off your first invoice. If you're listening to this show, I know making memories with family and friends is super important to you. And that's why I'm excited to introduce you to Flightographer. Flightographer connects travelers with local photographers in more than 350 destinations around the world. But it's more than just a photo shoot. It's a way to capture meaningful memories and experience a place through a local's lens. When I look back on past Flightographer photo shoots I've done, I don't just see pictures, but special moments preserved. I remember the feeling of that day and the story behind every shot. Whether you're celebrating a milestone birthday, a family vacation, or a special getaway to your second home, Flightographer is there to capture the moments you never want to forget. To book your own Flightographer shoot, visit the link in the show notes and use code SHF25, that's S as in second,
H as in home, F as in first, 25 to get $25 off your first shoot. And now back to the show.
And let me make sure I'm understanding this. So when a property is marketed as is, it's typically not in great condition, right?
No, no, that's what's the surprising part is now some sellers sometimes there's flips that are offered as is. That's usually because they did it without permits. So you're going to have to rip out the walls. And some sellers just don't want to be bothered. And when the market was hot and you're in an extreme seller's market, some sellers think, oh, well, let's just offer it as is. First of all, the second that you see as is, everybody thinks something's wrong. And usually there is. I mean, there's usually some problem, or else why would you do that? Like when I flip, even when I'm selling my own, I want them to do inspections. But I also do my own inspection before I list a home so I know everything that's wrong so I can fix it or disclose it. But other people think in this other non cooperative way, well, if I do an inspection on my own home, then I'll know everything. Then I have to disclose it. It's like, but when you get an offer and it's accepted, they're going to do the same inspection. So why
Right.
wouldn't you just know
Know it
first?
in advance. Yeah.
So whatever a seller knows, once they put it out in their first open listing as is, they're already hard to deal with. So for me, especially where I am in New Jersey, it's super competitive. Now you want to bid against 7 other people and give up all your rights, on inspections. It's just a bad use of my time. It's definitely a bad use of their time. And again, it is of no skin off my back to just walk away because I will never sign my name as an agent to a contract that I believe will not be in the best interests of my client, even if they think so.
This is what I love about you. Like, you're like, "I'd rather lose the deal entirely. I'd almost rather lose the client entirely than lead them down a path that I know is not gonna be good for them." And I think for people listening and watching, this is the key is, like, does your agent have your back to that level?
Yeah, and the way that you find out is any agent who will tell you no on a property, that's starting to trend in the right direction. If you see one, say they give you 5 must-haves, and then the first home they send you like doesn't have 3 of them. The first thing I do is point out, listen, you said you needed to have like, and I don't think you can get all the things, but we slowly go through that process. But I also don't want to start by going 2 out of 5. Like you're all like that you said you had to have a garage. Your cars are important to you. This doesn't have a garage. Like, so why are we starting off on that foot? So, like, your job as an agent is to become the brain of the client because they don't know any better. And when it comes to investing, that 1% of us who can work with investors, it's much different. I'm thinking of everything as an asset. So I'm looking at does this have long-term scale? Is it going to appreciate? Are the short-term rental or midterm rental or long-term rental numbers good? Are you capable of being a landlord? Do you know what you're getting into when you're buying this property? So, no matter what type of home you're buying, first home, home to live in, second home, condo, there's always things to look at to make sure, is this the right fit for you personally? And if you don't have an agent who cares about you as a human, you'll know. And a lot of people cater and just say, oh, well, I just can't find one. You can. You just go on Zillow, you plug in where you live, you plug in buyers, and you read their bios and you look at what homes they sell. So, like, if you're looking to do just say buy a 2 family, you look on Zillow because Zillow's matched to the MLS in every area now. So, all their past sales are going to go up automatically. And you look if they've been selling 2 family homes. And once you see someone who's sold to buyers a bunch of 2 family homes, like, oh, look, and it says house hacking in their bio, like there's a button on Zillow where you can click investing. The agents who are good with some of course will press it and they're terrible with investors, but when you look through the transactions and you see some dumps and then some flips if you want to flip, or you see some that they've clearly looked to be short-term rentals and you can match it up with short-term rental market, you're just trending better. Don't be afraid to it is harder now though. One important thing uh, is that you do need to sign buyer's agreements now. So you do get tied in, and I think the agreements are fine. I never used to use them before we had to, but the way so like when I fired that client the other day, I just immediately rescinded the agreement, even though it was just signed. Because I don't care. Like I'm not trying to hold them to the agreement. You have to talk to the agent up front. First of all, no one's going to sue over those. It's just a piece of paper, but you're building a relationship. So you can sign one-off agreements until but I would say keep interviewing agents, do your background research. Most people do no research. They just choose somebody Referrals are great, but it's not great to get a referral for a regular first home first if you're really trying to get a second home first. You want someone who's an investor specialist, and there's very, very few of us.
And why did you get that referral? Was it just like your friend's mom, or was it a person who could help with that specific type of transaction? When we first started looking to invest in the Finger Lakes, we toured a few properties with an agent, and I'll never forget I said to her, "What do you think this property is worth?" And her literal response to me was, "What it's listed for." She didn't even know the list price. She just said, "What it's listed for." And this was a new market to me. I was really looking for a real estate agent who was going to be my partner in this. And like you said, someone who understood investing and everything. And from that first day spent with her, I knew this wasn't going to be a fit on either side. And luckily, I did exactly what you said. I spent a lot of time looking at who was selling properties like I wanted, who was on the buyer side as well, and reached out and ended up finding an amazing agent in the area who's been an invaluable partner. So I think it's so crucial what you're teaching people, and also going back to what you said earlier about embarrassment, I do feel like everyone thinks everybody else has more money to spend or more knowledge in this, and people are almost embarrassed to ask these types of questions because it might show them in a bad light. Who cares about that?
I mean, right now, because of ChatGPT, I would say it goes both ways. I think there's people who are too meek and don't want to ask their questions because they don't want to offend the person. And then there's the complete other side who, no matter what you say, they plug it into ChatGPT and then tell you it's different. And I'm like, this
Wow.
isn't ChatGPT. This is 50 years of walking properties. And when I walk in, ChatGPT can't smell the mold from the flood that was here a year ago and can't look at the wall and see, look, there was a flood here. Maybe it's all fine, but do you want to know if they did remediation? Because you can see it on the wall. So I mean, it's the same thing. You're looking for ways that AI can help you, but those clients are not for me. When they tell me, well, Google said this, I'm like, it's not a good fit. And I know I have to develop trust, but there's nothing that I'm going to do that's untrustworthy. So I'm just going to say what I want. And I think you're really looking for the best way to describe it is you're trying to find a partnership. And if you and the agent both look at it as a partnership instead of like a transaction, you're gonna like I'm friends with all my clients. I just did a client appreciation event at this farm. We do it every year. Like 100 people came. People I hadn't seen in 10 years. They're like, oh, when's the last time you saw them? I'm like, 10 years ago when I sold the house. But it's not because we talk all the time. I just we're both busy. But you want someone who when somebody cares about you. If they care about your well-being, they're willing to say no, but there is a new, uh, breed of people who don't like to be told no. It's a participation trophy culture type of thing where they think their idea is right. Well, you don't need an expert like me, then you need a pushover, but, in 2 years, don't come calling when there's a problem because when you have a pushover agent and they do whatever you want, you don't know what you're doing. So you're gonna get what you want, and it's not gonna be that agent's fault. That's who you wanted.
It makes me think when you're out to dinner and you ask a waiter or waitress, "Hey, what's good?" And they say, "Everything." I hate that response. I'm like, "Just give me your actual opinion on this,
Right, and
please."
I ask that a lot if I go to a new place and I don't know, and I love when they say, like, "These 2 are my favorite," and then
Yep.
I'm like, "Okay." I don't think that they've never been wrong because 'cause I've never it's not like they said an olive dish, I don't like olives, and then I get the olive dish, I'm not dumb, but, I mean, there's just a lot of things that I think is a lot of this is just a mindset. The title of the podcast, Second Home First, is just a mindset shift for people. Am I capable? Am I worthy? Can I create this? The answer is definitely yes. And going back to what you said before, you don't need to have a special education to be good at real estate. I went to school, I was a lawyer, my dad was a lawyer, but we did things that everybody can do still now. We were doing in the 70s and the 80s. Everything that you can do in real estate, you can still do now. The technology is great. It's much easier to see things online. But if you're a home buyer or a second home first buyer, you need to see as many properties as possible. And one thing I want to point out that if we're talking second home first, some people might think, hey, it's easier to do from far away. No, you still want to see as many properties, even if, say, you're going to buy a turnkey in the Midwest. Go to at least 20 homes in your area so you start to get a feel for basements. So when you're looking and the agent there is sending you videos, if you're not going to go, I still suggest buying close enough where you can drive no matter what, because you want to get that firsthand experience.
Final question for you. You have shared so many amazing insider tips, but are there any others that you feel like we didn't hit on, whether it be getting the most out of working with an agent, short term rentals, what to look for in second homes, anything at all?
I don't know if we talked about this before, but it's just a mindset thing. It's a mindset of getting out of the traditions of what everybody thinks is the right way to do thing and start to get offline, meet some people who do it, because you'll feel much more comfortable. Like this podcast, I know this is going to help people. So we appreciate everybody who's listening, but it's like if you go and also meet people who are doing what we say, the light bulb is really going to go off, but your confidence level is going to go way up because you know that person who also has two kids, who also has a job, they're doing it. So you can do it.
Exactly. Since you're looking right now in upstate New York, any hot markets you want to give the inside scoop on in New York or New Jersey to the listeners?
Yeah, well, so for second home first, like upstate New York, Catskills area is really, really good. The issue there is each town has its own barrel of regulations. So again, going back to the agent, this is less than a 1% are tracking the regulations every day like I do. And it's not only like, don't ever trust my word. I make sure that all of my buyers call directly to the town because things can change. We're also doing deep dives to look for legislation that's proposed, meaning is it trending up or trending down? And when it's trending down, we want to be able to tell them, listen, right now it's fine, but this legislation is looking similar to this town, which is a little bit against them or has created a cap on the amount of units, which there's a lot of. And most of them that have a cap are maxed out and the waiting list is maxed out. So you can't buy there. Although if you do chat GPT, it will say it's STR friendly. So I look for the towns similar to how I used to do short-term rentals, and then as I was thinking about it, it's like you just look for towns that have always been involved in rentals. So you look for towns that kind of like it. I love Saugerties because it's like you can't do short-term in Woodstock. It's just you're not going to happen. But Saugerties is right next door. It's 12 minutes from Woodstock. There's cool stuff, and it's like Kingston, Saugerties, and Woodstock are in a triangle, but you can't do it in Woodstock. You can only do it in a part of Kingston. So Saugerties is really like great. And that it really depends though on what you want for your usage. So for me, it's like I like a more nature vibe. So I find myself personally looking for smaller units with more nature because my stays will be couples retreats, wellness stays. I'm not doing pickleball and climbing walls. I love when people do it, but upstate you can't do it the way you do it in Scottsdale. Upstate it has to look nature based. I would be thinking of more like scavenger hunts in the woods instead of pickleball, although I think both will work. So, I think everything is about figuring out what works for you. But one thing, again, going back to seeing as many properties, upstate New York and these areas, you have to go look at the properties because what happens up there, these are towns where people have lived for 50, 60 years. So you can have a $100,000 wreck right next to $1 million house, next to a 400,000, next to a 900, and then three dumps, and then a school bus that's been there for 30 years. So like I was looking at a property last week. I loved it. It was so awesome. But I told somebody on the way out, the average amount of cars in driveways around the probably next 50 homes was about 5.2. So it's just you're setting yourself up for a low review. And I love a property, but old me would have bought it because the property was awesome. It was right on the water. Smart me now, older me, more mature me knows that's going to be an impediment to it scaling the way that I want it to.
Absolutely. Jonathan, you have been a wealth of knowledge as always. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Always good to see you. And I'll see you back on my podcast for the second time soon.
That's right.
Thanks for listening to Second Home First. If you liked what you heard today, be sure to sign up for my free weekly newsletter at buyyoursecondhomefirst.com, where I share the simple 4-step strategy to help you do the same. If you have a minute to subscribe, rate, or review the show, or even send a favorite episode to a friend, that would mean the absolute world to me. And if you want to be a guest on the show, have a question you want answered, or a topic you think I should cover, send me a note at hello@buyyoursecondhomefirst.com or on social media at buyyoursecondhomefirst. I personally read and respond to every single message. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Klein, and I can't wait to see you all again next week. The content shared on Second Home First is for educational and informational purposes only. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making any investment or financial decisions.